Welcome to the Soul Sisters series, where you'll get thought-driven, inspiring topics for your soul with Vaughn Solis and Brenda Rachel. Okay, so welcome to another episode of Soul Sisters. This is our third episode, providing you with thought-driven, inspiring information as two sisters who grew up in the same family with a lot of dysfunction and have basically arrived at a very similar place in our lives with completely different experiences. And all of these episodes that we're offering you on this Soul Sister series are giving you snippets into what led us to become who we are today, what got us through the dysfunction, certainly what got us through our various challenges, how to stay motivated, how to stay inspired, and a whole bunch of other goodies that we talk about. So welcome to the Soul Sisters. So last week we focused on one point of the several we were going to talk about. And that was basically dedicated to the difficulty that, well, I'm going to wager millions of people, right, struggle with in terms of staying on the planet, our own struggles in having that conflict in our personal lives, and more generally, trying to help people who do struggle with that inner conflict, knowing that they really are meant to stay on the planet, but the body and the mind is telling them, no. So tune into that episode 2 on Soul Sisters, part 2, and you can hear a lot more about what we had to say about that. So today, what we are going to be talking about is exit points. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on exit points, but we want to give you an idea of what spiritual thought and practice sort of teach about that in general, and how to think about exit points. We're going to both be talking about our own near-death situations that we have gone through, a few in my life. My sister Brenda, she'll explain her own experiences around that, and just how to think about them in terms of linking that to exit points. And then we're going to be talking about family dysfunction. We're sort of building a story for you, paint the picture of the context, the framework in which we grew up, and how, because all of us are absolutely right, sis, conditioned by our beliefs, the practices, certainly of our parents.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And really, really kind of, you have to have it within you to break away from that.
Yeah.
So that's why we're going to be talking to real dysfunction, which some of us can also be really embarrassed to talk about, right?
Yes.
I mean, we know that people don't come from perfect families, but, you don't sit there and go really public necessarily unless you have messages about your personal dysfunction. It's to basically just really honor that dysfunction, and we do the best we can as, family members in every role, but it does play a huge role in what we struggle with as adults. And this is what we want to 100% talk about and share any of the angelic wisdom, as both Brenda and I are angel healing practitioners as well, and authors, and provide a lot of that information in the work that we do, but also just having these conversations.
Yes.
Yeah, and we want you to be part of that. We're also going to be talking a little bit, and we're going to be coming back to this over and over and over again, because it's an absolute theme, certainly in the work I do, and pretty much the work you do as well, in terms of, we're just going to call it manifesting. You and I really don't think of it as a manifesting practice in our lives anymore, because we've done it for so long, and we just now ask the angels and, say, hey, universe, angels, we need this, and we get it. But for people that don't have that ability, we're going to talk about throughout this series, beliefs, principles, just ways of how we stuck to it and believe. So we're going to be talking about a quote that my sister has in her book, all I have to do is believe to achieve. And I love that. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit. And closing out, we're just going to tease you with when things don't go your way. And we're going to be leading off with that in the next episode. Okay, so sis, let's open up a little bit with exit points.
Okay.
And how you came to sort of learn about them.
Okay.
And how you think of them today.
Okay. So where I learned about them was in Doreen Virtue's angel therapy practitioner course that we took together. And during one of the parts in her course, she was talking about exit points. And I can't remember if it was 8 or 9. But anyway, there was a number that she gave and said that we had, whatever the number was, I'm going to say 9, but anyway, exit points in our life where we chose to exit the planet. But at any time, if we'd made a decision at that time that we had chosen to leave, to not leave, then divine intervention occurred, and we did not leave. At that, predestined, pre-arranged time that we chose.
So I'm just going to say here, I'm going to frame mine kind of in soul contracts. And so it's really interesting. And we're only bringing this up, audience, just for a little bit of fun here. This is not to like convince anybody that there are exit points, but it's really more to think about, going back in your life and going, boy, did I have a close call, right? And what if I had died? And more importantly, because I didn't leave the planet, wow, what maybe happened? What did I allow to have happen in my life? It's just kind of fun, and it kind of puts another puzzle piece. I like to think of sometimes our lives and putting puzzles in, and if this didn't happen, this did happen, and I'm so grateful that didn't happen. All to say that I do believe in a silver lining with everything that happens in our life, and some things make you kind of go, wow, maybe I was saved for a reason, which ties into, something we talked about, I think in our first episode about purpose.
Yes.
And really tapping into that. And I believe that we are saved to do things.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't until I was writing my new book, Broken Spirit, Awakened Soul, My Journey of Healing with the Angels, and actually was given by the angels the outline of what it was going to be about, which was my 4 disabilities and my 8 near-death situations. And then I realized, wow, okay, it made sense what I had learned or chosen to accept in my consciousness about exit points from Doreen. These were all my exit points. And it made absolute sense to me that this is what was happening, and also that I had also made the choice not to leave.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm thinking here about what was really interesting. We're going to talk to you about it just coming up right next, is how we both chose one at age 4.
Yeah,
very different. We're going to talk about that.
And I didn't realize that we were both 4.
I know.
Until we started doing the
Soul Sisters.
I know. We stared going through our notes and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Yeah. Oh, interesting alignment.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to say about that, so what I was thinking when you were just speaking there for a minute is that these exit points that we have, and truly it doesn't really matter the number, but I thought it was like 5 or 6. You thought it was maybe 9. So let's just say there's a handful under 10 for sure. And other spiritual practitioners may have different information about that. But the thing is that I'm wondering if when we don't choose one, we're talking like hair's breadth that you could have been killed. Or maybe, you had an illness, a disease or something that they brought you back, and oh my gosh, they saved you, and everyone's like, what? So I'm just wondering if the chart in our life is going one way, and then it was sort of like, and I don't know, I'm just throwing stuff out here, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like, oops, the life could have ended there. But for some reason, and all of the people and the components, I'll just call them people components, everything we do in life, everyone we meet, all the next experiences shaped us, forced us, influenced us, I don't know, to take another path.
Yes. Yep.
And it's just so complicated, but it's just fun to think about.
Yeah.
It's just fun to think about and go,
Yep.
And I do have some examples in my own life. Definitely, I can share them as we get going on this. But why don't we turn to our first almost dying experiences at age 4.
Okay.
I don't want to dig too deep into it.
No.
I know what mine is.
Okay.
Start. Well, mine is very simple. I nearly drowned at this heated pool called Harrison Hot Springs. And I was running around the pool, and I probably have told you this before. And mom was sitting on the deep end, and our family used to go once in a while to this pool, and it's in British Columbia, and it's a lovely little pool. Anyway, I ran, as most kids do, from the deep end to this point that was at about maybe 3/4 deep end, but on the side of the pool, and fell in, of course. And I fell in right by this man, older man. I still remember it clearly. And I couldn't swim. And I guess I was sinking. And I can still just remember looking at his legs from the knees down, because he was sitting on the side of the pool, and wondering why he didn't save me, pull me out. But here's the interesting, and it went no further than that. But my little life went before me. And I still remember, I can't tell you I remember a collage of images, but enough that that was happening in my little young 4-year-old mind. And then whoosh, Mom pulled me out. And had she not seen me go in,
well, yes,
right?
Yeah,
but that guy
I could not have a sister right now. Yeah,
right. And anyway, it's not for me to debate and wonder why the guy didn't pull me up. Maybe he didn't know I was actually drowning, but I knew. That's the thing. I knew. Now, I didn't at that point, I didn't see a white light, nothing like that. So, but for me, it really felt like, I'm not going to be here anymore. And Mom saved me. And of course, I got in trouble for running around the pool. Now yours.
Oh, okay. Well, when I was 4, I went to the store with my girlfriend in a little town called Quesnel to buy some candy. And Mom had given us permission to go there. And so we got our candy, and then we were heading back to her place. And normally when we did this, we would end up at her house together. But for some reason, I do not know to this day how we got separated, because our houses were back to back, separated by a very small we were fenced in and they were fenced in, and so there was a pathway between our two houses. Anyway, I went down the path and up the stairs to her house, and before I got up the stairs to her house, her brother had yelled out to me, where were we? He was screaming down to me, where did you go? In a really belittling way. And I just said, we were at the store. And he said, what did you buy? I think I told him it was none of his business, but we had bought some candies. And so anyway, I asked him if Polly, my girlfriend, was there. And he said, yes, she's in the house. So I ran up the stairs, and he immediately grabbed me and had a butcher knife in his hand and put it around my neck and dragged me into the house through the big double doors that they had, the wooden doors that they had, off of the veranda into his house. And there was nobody in there but his sister. And he asked his sister, or he told his sister, to shut all the windows that were really high up. And so she did. And then he held me at knife point, dragged me through the house, and I was screaming for Mom. And then miraculously, Mom heard, and she saved me. And to find out more about the details, it's in my book. So
yeah, Brenda details that story a little bit, quite a bit more in her book. And we're not going to get into the impact necessarily, other than to say that
I was totally
traumatized you, right?
Right, I was traumatized for life by that.
Yeah,
and yes,
yeah, and. So would you say, so we're going to talk, we don't have time to get into all the details of these near-death. What we're just saying is both of us at 4 years old had experiences where we nearly died, one from drowning, and my sister, unfortunately, being held at knife point, where our mom was able to actually basically get her out of that situation. And
we'll get both of us. Now thinking about it, Mom saved both of us. Yeah.
Mom saved both of us.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh my!
Never thought about
that either, right? Holy smoly!
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, love you, Mom.
And so for me, I can't say at 4 years old what that exit point would have been, but maybe it was more about Mom needing us to stay than us needing to be here. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Just throwing it out there, given that she was our rescuer in both situations. Yep. That's so interesting. Yeah. The other two that I had were when I was 18 and when I was 30, both of them nearly being hit by a vehicle on a crosswalk.
Oh, yeah.
And, where that you feel, and I believe you had a near crosswalk death. Yeah, at what age were you?
Oh, I can't remember. In my 40s.
In your 40s?
Yeah, I had that near-death experience, and I had a near-death experience rafting, whitewater rafting.
So we've each gone through a few, and I nearly lost my daughter who almost got hit. She did actually. I did lose her when she was 22, but when she was about 9, she nearly got hit on her bike by a speeding car, and that was one time that it almost felt like the angels kind of moved her a little bit faster than life really goes. I wasn't working with the angels back then. I just want to say she crossed the rode her bike across the street before I had, signaled we can go together. And so I was still on my bike, stopped on the side of the street watching her do this. And it was literally like being in another time element,
like dimension or what
dimension, as something. And I'm going to go angels for sure saved her because it wasn't her time to go. And so how I equate that to tie in these exit points to our own personal experiences where we've had them, and I would wager almost all of us have had, whoa, that was a close call, or your kids, somebody really close to you where it's really impacted your life. And in that situation, which I don't even know if I had told you about that situation, which when she was 9, she was clearly going to leave me. It wasn't that exit. It ended up being 13 years later. Crap, but yikes. Anyway, so those are interesting when you look at the whole contract, the reason for being here, purpose. And a lot of us, I think, if not most of us, look for purpose. And our loved ones, our kids, our partners, sometimes our siblings, they play a part in some of our purpose stuff. People go through things together, certainly spouses in some cases. And it's just really interesting. All we're doing here is inviting you to think about exit points, any ones that you could have taken earlier in your life. It's not to sit here and contemplate when the next one's going to come up, because I certainly don't do that. But I think what it left me with overall is understanding, or at least thinking about, we could go at any time.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And and I think that's worth considering in how we act, in how we treat each other, and and just basically how we can plan. So if in the event that we do pass, we don't leave things so messy for our surviving loved ones. I do a little bit of work on emergency preparedness, and we're not going to talk about that here. What we're talking more about is having these experiences ourselves. We know how fragile life is.
Absolutely.
And it also makes you kind of think, I wonder which exit I'm really going to take.
Right.
Does that then do that for you a little bit?
It does. But also what it did to me after the last one, I became very conscious of each breath I was taking for quite some time. And especially when I go to bed at night and I just lay there and I consciously breathe in and out and go, is this the last breath I'm going to take tonight?
Yeah, is this you do?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Is this the last breath? Is this the last breath? Yeah.
And that's so interesting.
because one never knows when it's going to be the last breath.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we've had sudden, like our mom actually did end up dying really suddenly when she was 78, and none of us expected that. But both of us believe also that we become in tune when our time to be on the planet is kind of coming to a close.
Exactly.
Our time for transitioning. And our moms certainly knew that.
Yeah.
And I know that people in palliative, that work in palliative, or even have shared stories about their loved ones who kind of were in tune with, waiting to take their last breath. So they had said all their goodbyes. But, I just really believe that for most of us, or some of us, I don't know which I want to say, most or some, that I want to believe we know when our time here is done. At what we came here to do, we're complete, and everything we feel, kind of like it's okay to go.
Right.
And that almost sounds like, and I'm talking about going naturally here, or, basically having that exit point. And I wonder, I'm just going to ask the question. I don't know that we can answer it because I don't think we can.
Okay.
But the question is, I wonder if we are able to, like if we set an exit point and say, I just really want to die in my sleep peacefully, and I want to live to like 102, or whatever. I wonder, and because that's so prominent in my mind, I just wonder if that's the one sort of exit point, stamped, approved from the council in the other world, spiritual council. And and I just relax, Vaughn. Don't even think about it. That's kind of the one that you've literally chosen. You're just playing with the other ones. But I don't know.
Well, I think it's whenever we believe we...
Yeah, like if the thought...
So I think...
Yeah, like if the thought...
manifest anything that we...
Including our exit point. That was sort of the question.
Yeah, no.
Well, I believe that. Do you believe that?
Yes.
So I'm just saying, relax out there. If you want to live to 102, great. And that's not to say for people that say, because we did talk in the last episode on a more serious note here, all about the struggles that people have. So I'm not trying to make this super lighthearted. All the people who struggle, with just thinking they're done. And again, you want to listen to the episode to talk about it, especially when you're involved with your purpose work, your light work, and all of that. So I'm not making light of this and kind of go, well, what exit point? Like, where's my exit point? Where's my exit point? It's very complicated, and but it's just we're just here to inspire thoughts, right? Conversation and just
stimulate the brainwaves there and see what actually feels right.
Yeah, and also I think it adds a bit of a respect and honor for our lives, a preciousness to what we have chosen to go through on this planet. And we're going to be talking about that next episode, the pain and the hardship and the struggle and why. And, really give yourself a pat on the back. Pat on the back for, number one, choosing this. Oh, God. But sticking with it.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where I wanted to sort of go with talking about these. Yeah. We're still here. We're still here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so are you if you're watching this. Or let's look at this. Oh, yeah. Good point. Yeah, you're right. You thought you were. You really are. You're there. All right. Wakey. Okay. So we're going to turn to dysfunction. Yeah, seriously, dysfunction. And the reason we chose this as something to talk about is, as I mentioned earlier, it really shapes us. And the more expansive our consciousness becomes. And obviously you can, add your thoughts on this as well right now. The more kind of like you just take responsibility for your life, your incarnation, and all that encompasses, the good, the bad, and the in-between. So Brenda and I, we're like that, right, sis?
My absolute code of conduct for how I operate is I create my own reality. 100%.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that I do not accept responsibility for in my life at this point. It took me a long time to get here, but I have no one to blame, and I blame no one for anything that has happened in my life to this point. Nobody.
Yeah. And we've both lived like that for decades, really.
Yeah.
Decades. So I will acknowledge and honor for those of you who are tuning into this and going, yeah, no, I can, what about my, child abuse and this? So I basically, and in my years of being a practitioner and helping others, I always say I don't touch those subjects. That really is something that, issues that are really, really just too traumatic for you to deal with as an individual in this life, in this incarnation, then don't deal with them. And if it's just too massive for you, for me, for you to take responsibility for something that has happened. And so I say that respectfully, but also coming from being a bereaved mother and losing my beautiful, gorgeous only daughter at the age of 22 to suicide. I feel that I am comfortable enough sharing how I choose to live my life, and I absolutely still ran with that, or I still applied that principle, foundational. I like what you said. A code of how you conduct yourself, and how I believe it's so entrenched in me. I still recognize that I chose this experience, losing her, and I respect and honor that this experience has happened in my life. There's no blame. We do not blame others, do we?
No.
I don't even blame my daughter for going. So that is a foundation of what both Brenda and I, what both you and I, either teach, share in messaging, however we do our work and how we lived before. It's just when you live like that and yeah, I got it. I believe that too. And then something really happens to challenge that, right? Like you're not wanting to be on the planet and your own suicide attempt, and me losing my child and certainly not wanting to be here. I knew I wasn't going to end my life necessarily, but I had to dig deep. I had to dig deep to want to stay, but I still right off the bat knew and accepted I had created the experience. I just didn't like anybody reminding me of that. You created that. I was like, go away. But so I'm saying that super respectfully if anyone is listening to this and watching this and just going, you're just wrong, you're wrong. Okay, I am wrong. And I respect that is not something that you want to, apply or believe in for your own life. And I respect that. So when we're talking about this, and you're the same way, a lot of compassion and empathy for people who aren't where we are in our thinking.
Right.
And just, it's, for me, it's all about just for me, it's all about whatever little key message. It could be 3 words that stick in your mind. And I've had to do this all of my life since I began my spiritual practice at age 25. You can only absorb so much. And then even when, you have all of that, when Janaea died and I was 23 years into my spiritual practice, I had to relearn it all pretty much. So I get it. I really, really get it. So
I think the one thing that I also want to say is what I understand for myself and what works for me. I'm not at all trying to persuade any other person to think or adopt any ideas that I share. I have come to this understanding through my own trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
And I have walked my path, my own way, and by myself. And so I'm not here to convince anybody to adopt these ideas,
right,
and practices that I have put in place for my life. And this has taken me a long time, because I did not come into the understanding of I create my own reality until probably the 1980s. And so
but here's a question, even on that note. It took years for both of us and we weren't sitting there comparing notes. Hey, sis, we both arrived at our metaphysical spiritual practice on our own, in our own time. I was 25, and I had my own set of circumstances that brought me to it. And quite frankly, it was becoming a mom. And at age 25 with my daughter, and you came to it your own way. Yeah. And so you don't compare notes on this, but you do absorb the information and have it. I always just love the word expand your consciousness and expand your life the way you can and the way you are sort of guided to. And you may have some experiences that are like really super powerful. At the time I came into contact with, all of us in color in the spiritual realm, which was the actual, I think, moment I connected to higher consciousness. And I would have been about 27 at that time. But it wasn't until, just a second here, it wasn't until 2006 when I was just months before we both went to train under Doreen to be, at that time we were called angel therapy practitioners, that my third eye actually opened. And that took losing my daughter. And my third eye actually literally opened, and I saw it for years. And then eventually I didn't need to always see it. And so it's there, but, and other people saw it too when we were training. So things happen to us in tiny things, which I think are the most wonderful to practice, rather than, be hit with something so enormous that it is life-changing. But that is, quite frankly, how some people choose to become aware, become enlightened, to change their whole entire life experience. And all it takes is one kind of light bulb moment, and you're on that path, right?
And I'm just going to throw out here, for those of you who, we're talking about third eye and higher consciousness and all that. So for myself, I don't even really know what a third eye is, and I've never had it open, and I've never seen anybody in a higher consciousness frame. So I'm just saying to you, it doesn't mean that if we're saying anything to you and you're going, what?
I haven't done that yet.
I haven't done that yet. It may not be your path to ever come to your spiritual awakening on this planet through anything or either anything or some of the things we're saying. Because our journey is our journey, our individual journey. Yeah. And my sister will have had many experiences that I have not had, and vice versa.
Exactly.
And so, but it doesn't mean we haven't been on a spiritual awakening path here for years and years and years. So everybody has their journey a different way. Yeah. And that's all I want to make sure that you understand. So we're not trying to leave you with, if you've never had anything we're saying happen to you that you didn't get it. Yeah. No, you may have had totally different experiences and fully be on your spiritual path.
And I think I'll let you speak to this really quickly. I think the overall thing when I think of a spiritual practice, and I think of metaphysics is really just looking at life, that it's more than the physical, and a ton of stuff falls into that. A spiritual practice for me is acting with the knowledge that there is more than just this human body, and to treat everyone, including myself, and the last one takes maybe a long time for a lot of people. But even if we start with treating others with the respect, the honor, the I see you, it's really true. I see you. And just, just honoring that we're all in this together on this planet, and it's choosing just to be the best that we can be on any given day with love and kindness in our heart. Simple terms. And some of us learn that as parents with the absolute love that you feel when that little babe is born. And every single parent who, is obviously wanting to be a parent, and they look at that child and my life has changed. I've never felt a love like this before. So that, and I'm talking here for good parents and well-meaning and intentioned parents, of course. And so just let's keep it in that context for the moment, that same love, unconditional love, that sometimes it takes a child for us to, open it up and, sort of engage with that. Sometimes it's a partner. Sometimes it's just like what we were talking about, something that's happened that brings you to that. Could even be a near-death experience, whatever it is that brings you to that. Oh my God, I just feel this overwhelming. It's an overwhelming just sense of almost internal bliss for me when I'm just in that state. And because we can't necessarily always stay there, it's just having those principles of how we want to treat each other the way we would want to be treated. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's kind of a long-winded take on it, but I don't know. How would you sort of define just a commitment to a spiritual practice? And because it's not all about, becoming a channel or being psychic, or as Brenda said, seeing these things in another realm and communicating with someone in the afterlife, with none of that, which really makes a spiritual practice.
Yeah.
What is a spiritual practice for you?
Well, not being a mother. So I've never experienced having that first look at your baby when it's born. So I've come to understand, and I write about this a lot in my book, but my philosophy has basically come down to applying 5 traits in my life, which are caring, consideration, compassion, kindness, and respect, to treat each other with those qualities or traits. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's what gives me a sense of unconditional love for another human being. Mm-hmm. And when I'm treated, it's exchanged with me, reciprocated to me, I feel that love with the other individual. So, and it's obviously, it can be anybody. It doesn't need to be a family member. I've had many exchanges one-on-one which are fleeting, very fleeting, mm-hmm. Conversations with people, which have been, where did that come from? And
it's really cool if you have a fleeting moment with, we'll just call him a stranger. Mm-hmm. But there's something that's kind of like, I know you, mm-hmm. I see you, and I know you. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I want to say is animals. Animals can bring that out in us.
Absolutely.
Unconditional love, kindness, compassion, and just, oh my God. Yeah. And I no longer an example is I no longer have animals in my life. And Brenda has a cat. But anytime I see a little muppet of a puppy or a cat, a kitten, doesn't matter, any animal, that brings out those same feelings in me, that warmth and joy, because, I no longer have a small child to cuddle and feel that warmth with, but any number of things, you might see that in nature. Yep. That's not the point. The point is, I think that I want to just sort of conclude this little topic on is when you are in a spiritual consciousness and have love for others, love for yourself, love for whatever you can in this world, and you basically come from the light, okay? Basically, it's light, and that type of energy that you see it as possible. And when you meet someone else with that same consciousness, mm-hmm. it's just a connection. It's wonderful. It's a bond, a connection, and it can even be online. It can be, a virtual thing. It can be just it's this. You have the same energy.
I think what I also will interject and say, if it might be for you as well, but when I've had this exchange, this quote unquote light exchange with another human being, mm-hmm. that I feel so much joy in my heart and walk away from that.
Yeah.
Whether it's a tiny, short, couple of minute conversation, or it's a longer conversation, or it's several exchanges over a period of time.
Yeah.
I just feel much happier in my soul after I've had that experience.
Yeah. Food for the soul.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about dysfunction. And I decided today to, be really open and honest because we've talked a lot. So we came from dysfunction of suicide attempts, multiple suicide attempts, by our mother. Well, until I was age 10 and you were about 14. And so I don't personally want to dwell on that. One of the reasons today, because it's very complicated, and one of the reasons I don't talk and haven't talked very much about it in my work and, in my podcast and episodes and things like that, is because we are a culture that's very quick to judge. And because I lost my daughter to suicide, I won't disrespect her journey on this planet and other people characterizing her as mentally ill and it was in the genes and so on and so forth, all that stuff. And I once did an interview many years ago. It was actually about a year after, no, it was actually just maybe 3 or 4 years after she passed. And it was on a community cable channel. And I was there basically and made it clear I wanted to be there to just share inspiration and talk about the work I was doing and not focused at all on suicide and my daughter's passing. And they asked a couple of questions and then edited the whole thing down to like 5 minutes where it focused only on all of these really super negative aspects of, mental illness and things like that. And I said, I'm never going to do that again. Mm-hmm. So, but it is a fact that we grew up with that, situation. And so we were very aware of death. Right? Potential death, as well as we could understand it in our various age ranges.
So I think
would you say?
For me, and I'm pretty sure for you, but you'd have to say we are very aware of life and impending death, like at any moment.
Yeah.
Because we never knew when we were going to come home from school or church or whatever if our mother was going to be alive. So not for a long time after her first or first couple of attempts when we were smaller. But as we got a little bit older, I can only speak for myself.
Yeah.
But I used to cringe walking down our street, which was a very short street to our driveway, wondering if she was still there or had been taken away.
Yeah. And so because I was younger, I felt... and the reason I'm bringing this up is for anybody who is struggling with dysfunction, came from dysfunction, you're embarrassed, you're ashamed about it, and so on and so forth, and many other ways it impacts us to feel different. So I will say from probably the age of 6 when I kind of became aware of it, and we lived in a pretty typical suburb, right? A medium-sized town, suburb, nice home, big backyard, blah, 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 all that stuff. But having a parent who was in trouble, and years later, I will never diagnose another individual, but been in touch with many different, mental disorders in trying to determine, geez, what did they miss with my daughter? And just different things. Okay. I remember I said to you recently, I honestly thought Mom was dealing with postpartum depression, which in the 50s was not something we talked about, but 6 pregnancies, 6 years, 2 miscarriages in those, 4 kids in 6 years, then 4 live births in 6 years. It was a lot for her. And at her heart, and I want to honor and respect this about our mom, is that our mother was a pianist, a musician, an artist, and she had a right to have that freedom of expression in her life. But for whatever reason, in her contract, her choosing, she ended up going the route that, needed to be a mother as best she could. But clearly these attempts were, and I'm just, basically saying it how I feel, either her cry for help, that something was wrong, really, really wrong. And at that time, there just was no help for it.
Right.
And so she went through her own journey, which we're not going to talk about her journey, but we love her, we bless her, respect her. And we're happy to say that she did recover when I was 10, working with a fabulous therapist who understood how they were trying to treat her. I was a kid, so I'm just, and I didn't get a chance to talk to Mom too much about this in her life. So had she told me this in her words, I would share some of what she said. She didn't. So I am just expecting. We do know she did say and share with us that changed her life, getting the right help.
Yep. And then from there, she found her purpose work.
She did. And she was amazing. And she dedicated her life to her music. She painted. She was amazing at anything she did and touched. And really, I think her artistry had been, her creativity had been smothered by this domesticity and being stuck in a situation that felt so wrong for her soul.
Correct.
And I honor and respect that for anyone struggling with that. Oh my goodness, because until you understand that you're not aligned with your larger purpose, why you really came to this planet, and we do other things. I don't want to say it's diversions, but because I think everything we do is charted and is meant to be. But I think we can sometimes get muddled and put more importance on some things that we can either grow out of, or we need to make more space for ourselves, and don't allow ourselves to do that.
Yep.
And I think so much dysfunction comes from that. I wanted to just ask you, so giving you a little bit of context, folks, the context about our childhood, I would say that's probably pretty severe dysfunction, right? Like not knowing if you're going to have a parent alive when you come home. That's a lot to kind of deal with, and both of us having some trauma, experiences directly related to situations dealing with Mom respectively that, impacted us. So for me, what I really wanted to ask, talking about this today, is how did this dysfunction, just really generally characterizing it, because again, we're talking and trying to help people that have this alcoholism, abandonment, drugs, even abuse, we were also both hit, we weren't abused per se, but, I consider spankings on bare butts. It'd be abusive today. You'd get your kids taken away today. It's embarrassing, humiliating. Anytime that you're, as a child, being treated by a parent or guardian where they are abusing that responsibility and making you feel powerless through violence, through abuse of any kind, through abandonment, through, just even, shaming you, through, forcing you to, either shut up or put up, there's so many numerous things that we come from as adults in our childhood. And it's all dysfunction. But I did want to ask you, with our own dysfunction, which, by the way, I personally am not making worse than any other dysfunction, but I did just want to acknowledge that I think it was probably pretty severe. How did it impact you in making, I don't want to say necessarily making choices for your life, but just how did it influence you as you left home and sort of charted your way through your adulthood? Did you let it did it influence you negatively? Like how did it leave you?
Well, I think it influenced me more when I was living at home. And, at age 13, I wanted to die. I actually ran out of my classroom at school and ran under some bushes and just prayed. And I was very much into Christian philosophy at that time, Christian religion. and just prayed to God to please take me. Like,
so why at 13 to even have that awareness? What did you want to just escape the home life?
Oh no. I was just devastated at the situation with me feeling that the whole community knew my mom was crazy and mental. And
so did you feel ashamed?
Yeah.
Oh, you felt ashamed?
Felt very ashamed to be, and also very angry because they didn't know Mom. And so I felt like it was...
What do you mean by that? They didn't know Mom?
Well, to
you mean in the
stigma, the stigma of being mentally ill, that she was crazy and nuts and all the other things that you would use as adjectives for somebody who was mentally ill back in the 50s and 60s.
Well, they use it today.
Yeah.
They literally, that's again why I've been very quiet about this. But interesting, I want to jump on the point that I'm 6, you're 10, I'm 7, you're 11, I'm 8, you're 12 until 10 and 14. And we had similar interpretations of what was going on around us. You would have had a little bit more awareness and real understanding. I'm a little kid and I don't know, but I did feel the shame. Oh my God. Couldn't have sleepovers, right?
Yeah.
And there was something wrong. I still though remember, haven't let this impact me, and where I'm really getting to this is if we've let any of this dysfunction impact us, but I still remember clear as a bell. Very, very rarely could I have a friend stay overnight, and more often than not, 9 times out of 10, I'd have to go to a friend's place, and I was really impacted is the only word I can say, by how their houses, their homes, their home life. It's what I wanted, and I didn't have that. Now, to be clear, we lived in a bungalow. Nothing wrong with it.
No.
Our dad worked for the government, right? Brought in the steady paycheck, but the 4 walls don't matter. What matters is the dysfunction and the turmoil going on within us that doesn't allow us to see that. So our home became something to almost, I don't want to necessarily say to be feared, but how you were saying you would sometimes have anxiety or coming down the very short, a little street. It was called Elm Street. And so for a lot of years, I was like, yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street. It's true. And there was even a murder-suicide across the street from us. I will not name the town, okay? But that's but having this foreboding, it's like a foreboding.
So for me, I just want to jump in here, okay?
Yeah.
So because of Mom's illness and me being the oldest of 4 kids, and having her suicide attempts at very early on. So I, at the age of 8, took over the responsibilities of being the mother in the household. So I did the cooking when I came home. I got supper ready. I did the laundry. I looked after all the kids, the other 3 kids, to the best of my ability. So I basically became like the second mom in the house. And so my childhood was basically...
you were robbed of your childhood.
I didn't have what a person would call like a normal childhood. So I was a very, very mature 8-year-old. And I was left to babysit the kids like when I was 10 and from 8.
Yes, just to be, so there were 4 of us all 2 years apart.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Basically, yeah.
At a certain point in the year, we're all 2 years apart.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm just saying I became sort of the mature...
You were the caregiver
of the 4 children.
You were the child's caregiver of children.
Yeah.
And I would have been... The illness with our mom started right after the birth, would you say, of our youngest brother.
Yep.
And so I would have been
Oh, no, I'd say it was... She was hospitalized before you and after you with her...
So it started even before I was born.
Right. With her 2 pregnancies she lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your experience was the caregiving and the responsibility, and knowing at 13, I'm out. But just having that awareness, today, we have 10-year-olds taking their life.
Yeah.
I mean, my God. So I didn't hear the word suicide as a child in the home. Not that I can remember and I'm aware of, but I was very well aware, to the degree I could understand it, that mom had done something to kill herself. So the words really in my frame of reference were kill herself.
Right.
Is that how? Is that resonate?
I would say like never understood anything about it being a suicide attempt.
No, we didn't talk about that like that. No.
Yeah.
So it's just our mom kept trying to kill herself.
Yeah.
And I can't have my friends over. And I don't even know if this is a clear memory where sometimes maybe we couldn't even go somewhere because something like of a crisis nature was going on in the family. But the whole thing was so dysfunctional. Relationships, everything. It was just a small space of such dysfunction, right? It's a miracle like that. We actually came out of there without any severe addictions. I left home just before I turned 16. And I mean, I guess I could have ended up on the street, but instead I ended up working for the phone company. I did lie and say I was 17 when they hired me, and I was promoted to supervisor. So I guess that says something about, because I also kind of think that we choose our disposition that we're going to come into the life with.
Absolutely. We choose everything.
Right? Like, I'm going to be a positive person in this life, and I'm going to go up against so much dysfunction, but you're also going to be a supervisor at the phone company when you're 17. Like, yeah, like, right? High five. Brenda worked at the same phone company.
We worked there together.
Yes, we did. Anyway, we won't discuss any more about that, but we did have fun, and I moved on from there after about a year. So being that kid caregiver, and as a kid yourself,
yeah.
So what's that done to you?
Well, it's made me a very mature adult, and kind of always like I didn't have time to really think too much about myself, because I was looking after. My primary role was to caregive.
Yeah.
So that's what I've kind of been most of my life as a caregiver, whether it's been through sitting through, listening to people just talk to me, and I needed to be just a listening ear, or to provide counsel when I felt that I had something that person needed to hear, whatever. Anyway, the role for me just definitely wasn't to grow up and get married, which I had wanted to do, and have children, until that wasn't part of my path.
Yeah. One fun thing to do in the midst of all this doom and gloom is I love to sometimes just pretend I'm going above my body. And quite frankly, usually I'm lying down when I do this. My high ceilings here. And I look at my life, I just kind of look at it in pieces, chapters almost, and kind of like just make a montage.
Oh yeah,
of what I've chosen, how I was as a kid, things I love, things and I, you kind of can do this when you have specific memories. Like, I loved clothes and fashion.
Oh yeah.
And I was fascinated, by cutting out pristine images from the Sears catalog. And I still remember cutting them out, my living room with the right furniture and the mom and dad and the 2 kids. And I'd put all the different rooms, lay them out, on the bed, and kind of play house like that. And that's kind of what I ended up creating in my life. And so you can actually quite clearly, if you go back and sort of do this thing where it's not just kind of digging into your memories, but kind of taking a snapshot like a drone, your drone self, and looking down at what impacted you the most. And there's going to be a few really, really vivid memories. Me banging away on an Olivetti typewriter, typing this story. and and just writer. So a writer, somebody liking clothes. Doesn't mean I went into fashion, but I have always paid attention to appearance for the most part. Wanted that pristine home. And all of these things can, of course, cause some problems for us if we, don't deal with where these things come from, and we're using that as a way to kind of make up for what we didn't get. Mm-hmm. So, and there's nothing wrong in creating a great life for yourself because you don't want to repeat the dysfunction.
Right.
But what I'm getting at here is, have we dealt with the trauma of that in our lives? I'm not sure I did.
Oh, I'm complete with the trauma now.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying I am or I'm not. I just didn't make the trauma a part of my adult life. Honestly, I didn't. So I would agree with you. I don't feel like I'm sitting here anything incomplete, but both our parents are also gone. So there's not much you could clean up and clear up with them anyway, if you were incomplete. But I just don't think that impacted me to the point I couldn't, choose how do I want to say this? Like a better life.
Yeah.
Not get stuck. And do you know what I mean? I
do. And I guess for my part, I had a wonderful relationship with mom and dad, both of them.
Yeah.
Right until they died.
Yeah.
So mom didn't live near me when she died, but I talked to her every day for months.
Yeah.
Because I was waiting for surgery, and except for the day she died. And we had made an arrangement the day before that we wouldn't talk the next day because we were just saying the same thing over and over. And then that was the day she died. So for that, I'm a bit sad.
But interestingly, I have to say, I did talk to her. And unlike Brenda, even though I lived within an hour of mom, I wasn't the one talking to her every single day. So it's kind of like a nice sharing that I did get to have that conversation that afternoon.
Exactly. So I'm just saying, so for me, I don't feel that I had a great relationship with both my parents. So that was never a problem, although we didn't either of them live in the same city as me. But
so here's a question. Do you think that, and I don't want to simplify this, we are coming to the top of the hour too as we talk about this, but do you think that not blaming your parents, our parents, your parents, our parents well, you certainly can't blame anyone for illness, right? Mm-hmm. But the way the illness was handled was quite traumatic, right? By dad, and there was just a lot going on. But not blaming our parents, do you think that frees us to just go and live our best life instead of getting muddled by, all of these things that simply put can kind of sometimes force us to choose, I don't want to deal with this. I am so pained and hurt by this. I'm just going to blur it out. And we do that through many devices, addiction, just numerous things.
Well, for me, it's just, I don't feel, and it was never part of my consciousness to blame mom or dad for anything that happened in my life. It just wasn't part of my consciousness.
Yeah.
Not even until I became aware that I chose everything that happened to me in my life anyway. But yeah, so
it is complicated. Again, we're just talking, thinking as we're talking, and just inviting you to think about your own situation. If it has impacted you, stalled you in any way. Mm-hmm.
Or also if you're in a situation right now.
Yeah, good point.
And the situation hasn't passed.
Yeah.
And you have an opportunity, maybe through what we're sharing, is to say, like you have an opportunity at this juncture to maybe do something or think a different way about what's going on in your life with whatever situation. And just know that there's more than one way to look at something.
Absolutely. And there's more than one way to do life. The strongest influence, I think, for me was that I must have developed a sense of independence as a kid.
Oh, you were very independent. Yeah.
And
I
was.
Oh, yeah, you were very independent.
And a very, very strong spirited.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to let anything get me down. Hence, that's why I left home just before my 16th birthday, and has helped me live a life that very often has gone outside the color lines in decades that things weren't really, like I was a single parent in the 80s, and it was still frowned upon in the 80s, literally. And I just never let anything hold me back.
Correct.
And that has served me
Correct.
extremely well,
Yeah.
having my most life-changing experience happen, which was losing my daughter. I want to give credit here, kudos to having my son, who is a wonderful support. He's 31 now. But losing my only daughter, that has been the most devastating and challenging experience I've taken on in this life.
Yep.
In every area, including my spiritual thought.
Yeah.
And my spiritual foundation is what I want to say. And I think that choosing this dysfunction in a family model helped me really survive what I've survived the last 18 years and brought me right where I am today.
Absolutely.
So I want to say on that note that it has brought us to what we do today in its various ways.
Yeah.
We were not held prisoner to it, which a lot of people are, right? I guess what I want to say is like a lot of people blame their parents and their family dysfunction for how it ruined their life. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't be any other way than the dysfunction that was shown to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, and this all sort of ties into not only self-responsibility, but also understanding that we have the power within us. Mm-hmm. And this goes right back to our first episode we did together when we talked all about like church influence and things like that, things that really influenced us as children to understand. And then as young adults, I should add, with more spiritual type, but still Christian related principles in that help both of us. We were saying in that first episode about how we understood the source, the God, the creator, that something really was much bigger than us in this human life, but we still had the power within us to tap into that and create the life we really want. And so I want to move in as we close this one out and tease you a little bit for the next episode in talking about choice, so we can choose basically the more awareness that we have, what we want to be impacted and influenced by, good, bad, right? Take the easy way out, take on the challenges, right? See the glass half full, half empty, all of the opposites that we're presented with throughout life. And you talk a lot about this in your book as well, being presented with the opposites.
Yeah.
You talk about them as opposites?
Contrasts.
So we do get to choose what we want to be influenced by and manifest the life that and that's why I'm going to go back to the word manifest the life that we want, until we get to the point where we basically just put the order in and basically let it come to us as it needs to be delivered to us when we're ready for it, by the way. But just touching briefly, because we're going to start with this next episode on this whole concept of manifesting and believing, okay, maybe I can have a better life. Maybe I don't have to let my childhood impact me this way. Maybe I do want more than my illness. Maybe I do want to move beyond my grief. Take any number of life experiences or events. There's millions of them. So we're going to tease you a little bit with where we're starting in the next episode, where this is my sister. So why don't you read what it says?
Okay, it says, all I have to do is believe where there's a desire to achieve.
And you wrote that in your book, and I just loved it because it's true. all you do have to do is believe that you can achieve when you have the desire to do so. And I'm paraphrasing on that one. And that has been a foundational piece since my start into a spiritual practice and understanding metaphysics in my mid-20s, as I was both pregnant and, became a new mom. And interesting fact is I did have a lot of trauma going on in my life when I was expecting Janaea. It brought me to the Unity Church, and I literally thought I was going to lose her while I was pregnant. And that, interestingly enough, brought me to this need and desire to go to Unity. And I didn't know what I was going to find at Unity Church, but I embraced all of these, principles. They felt right. And as you embrace information, as you personally want to grow and expand your life, expand your consciousness, you'll know when you're hearing the right messages.
Oh, absolutely. What happens for me is it just resonates within me. I feel light. I feel bright.
Yeah.
And I know it's right.
You feel like you're at home. For me, I sobbed when these messages first started to open my mind and my heart. And I knew my baby was going to be okay. And I committed to be the best person I could. I wouldn't have seen it back in those years as evolved, but that's exactly what I was choosing, to tap into my agreement for this incarnation, where I was going to evolve to the best and to the most that I could before I leave this planet at 102, dying in my sleep. Anyway, we want to leave you with that thought that you can create the life you want, right? What do you want your closing words on that for people watching or listening to this?
Well, I guess the one thing I would say is you're never too old to set a goal and to say to yourself, or when I say a goal, something you want to achieve. And so it doesn't have to be big and lofty. It can just be, I want to get up and feel happier today, or whatever it is for you. And just really understand that comes from a place of knowing you can have it, but like believing you can have it, and expressing you can have it, and accepting that. And so it is. Today, it is here and now. I have received it. And so as if it's in the present moment, you're receiving whatever it is you're asking, that it's here now for you. And not something that's going to happen 3 months down the road or 6 months down the road, or when you change something in your being. We can create whatever it is that we want, whatever we desire in any given moment for anything that it is that we want to achieve. But we have to believe it. We have to really come from a place of, I absolutely believe I can have this. Otherwise, it won't happen.
And I'll just add that you deserve it.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
You get it when you're ready for it.
Right.
And we'll teach you how to do that in our work through all the various platforms and formats that we work. So I did want to just say that next week we are going to be opening with this idea again of talking a little bit more on this ability to create what you want, and none of these quick fixes like, there's a secret. No, there's not. And the things and pain specifically that we're going to be opening up a discussion about that many of us choose. In my case, it's been mental, emotional. My sister, Brenda, it's been a lot physical. I'm not going to say there hasn't been mental, emotional, because you get a mental and emotional pain from physical illness, that's your whole area. Mine is the bereavement and well, Brenda's bereaved as well. Interesting again, because we come from these polar opposite experiences. I'm the one that is in the, the painful grief of the loss of the child, and Brenda has obviously experienced loss of a niece and the grief, and we give credit and respect and, in grief, in all of our situations, but more the physical, which I haven't had to deal with. So we bring, a well-rounded, array of experiences of pain and suffering to this idea of what do we need and want to let go of, to choose not to be stuck there in some cases, or accept that we are there in this life. And maybe one day we won't be. So we're going to be tapping into a lot of different subtopics related to that next episode. And I do hope you tune in. And until then, we are the Soul Sisters. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye.